영어 섀도잉 76일차 한번 시작해 보겠습니다. 네, 오늘도 어제 이어서 그 How to Talk Like a Native Speaker 라는 영상을 해볼 거고요. 처음에 일단 먼저 지난 시간에 했던 것을 반복해서 연습을 하고 오늘은 이제 한 문장씩 잘 들으면서 발음에 집중해서 따라하는 걸로 연습을 해보겠습니다. Perfect Sentence 방법으로 한 문장이라도 완벽하게 따라하는 그 방법을 해보겠습니다. 자막 안 켜고 들으면서 해보겠습니다. My story starts in Moscow.
I was 15 years old.
It was in 1987. Best friend and I,
We were part of a group of Westerners
we were part of a group of Westerners
visiting the Soviet Union.
visiting the Soviet Union.
This was in 1987,
This was in 1987,
a few years before of the communist regime.
a few years before the fall of the communist regime.
A tour guide who was assigned to us, and the tour would start in the morning, and we were checked into our hotel rooms for the night.
We were given an unofficial tour guide who was assigned to us, and the tour will start in the tomorrow morning, and we are checked in our hotel rooms for the night.
My friend said to me, "Let's go outside and look at the city."
My friend said to me, "Let's go outside and look at the city."
I thought it was a great idea, dumb idea.
I thought it was a great idea, dumb idea.
So we grabbed our coats and we snuck out past security and into the street.
So we grabbed our coats and snuck out past security, and into the street.
We found the entrance to the metro. The Moscow underground transportation system is the deepest one in the world.
We found the entrance to the metro. The Moscow underground transportation system is the deepest one in the world.
The ride down the escalator took a full minute.
The ride on the escalator took a full minute.
Once we were down there, my friend had it right to an open train, and I pulled him back. I said, "Wait."
Once we were down there, my friend had it right to an open train, and I put him back and said, "Wait,
Let's write down the name of the station so we can find our way back.
let's write down the name of the station so we can find our bag."
So I had a notepad, and I took a notepad and I wrote down the letters of the station. And
Notepad. I took a notepad, so I wrote down the letters of the station.
we hopped on the train and went some train hopping.
We went out. We hopped on the train. We went on train hopping.
And that was fun because, well, actually it was weird.
That was fun because actually it was weird. Actually, it was weird.
Were a lot of people, they probably all coming home from work, and
There were a lot of people. They probably all coming home from work,
they were all dressed in brown and gray clothes, and it looked very, very different from what we were used to.
and they were all dressed in brown and gray clothes and looked very, very different from what we are used to at home.
Home. But the stations were lovely. There were stations with statues, with
But the stations were lovely. There were stations with statues,
paintings on the wall,
the paintings on the wall,
glass displays,
and glass
it was really like
displays.
museums.
It was really like museums.
We would never have expected that, and
We were never have expected that. We were never have expected that.
everything was perfectly clean.
Everything was perfectly clean.
Well,
Well,
what was weird though is that the people, nobody seemed to speak, and everyone seemed to be looking at us, and it kind of weirded us out. So after about we had enough and we wanted to go home.
But what was weird though is that the people, nobody seemed to speak. Everybody, everyone seemed to be looking at us, and it kind of weirded us out. So after about 20-30 minutes, we had enough. We wanted to go home.
showed my note to someone and they directed me over there. And
So I showed my note to someone, and they directed me over there.
then over there
And
I
over
showed my
there, I
note to
showed
another
mine to
person. And
another
they directed
person.
us
They
to the other
directed
way.
us the other
And
way.
then a third person
And third
directed us
person
sideways.
directed us sideways.
That was a little confusing.
There's a really confusing.
Oh, then I saw it.
Then I saw
Over
it.
the stairs. The
Up the
sign. Turn.
And then I saw it up the stairs.
A little confusing. Over the stairs.
Then I saw it over the stairs. The sign.
The sign. Turned out I had written down the Russian word for exit.
Turned down. I had written down the Russian word for exit.
So we headed upstairs and we found a taxi that would.
So we headed upstairs, and we found a taxi.
That was great. And
That was great.
Told the driver, in tourist hotel, and
And I told the driver, in tourist hotel,
he was willing to take us. And I
and he was willing to take us. And
remember sitting next to
I
the driver,
remember sitting there next to the driver,
handing him 50 rubles.
handing him
He
50
looked at
rubles.
me and he said,
He looked at me and he
"Нет,
said, "Нет,
dollar."
dollar."
$50?
$50. There was
I don't know,
like
20 times that
20
amount or
times the
something.
amount or something.
That was not an option
There's
for
not
us,
a,
so we had to get out of
there was not an option for us.
the taxi. And he
We
drove
had to get out of the taxi, and he drove away, leaving us standing there.
It was cold night. And
It was cold night.
everything was strange for us.
No,
and we were teenagers.
everything was strange for us. We were teenagers.
We were pretty nervous.
We were
Didn't know what
pretty
to
nervous.
do.
Didn't know what to do.
We started walking.
We started
walked
walking.
to the end of the block.
Well, we walked to the end of the block
We turned the
and
corner,
turned the corner.
and 200 yards in
200
front
yards
of
in
us,
front of us.
the Interest Hotel.
The 200 yards in front of us, the Interest Hotel. This
Experience affected
experience
me in two
affected me
ways.
in 2 ways.
The first
The
is
first
that
thing is that
anytime after this trip that I
anytime after this trip that I will
would hear
would
anyone
hear
speak Russian, I would
anyone
just
speak Russian,
cringe.
I would just cringe.
And the second one
And
is
the
that,
second is
it
that,
taught me the importance of
It taught me the importance of
understanding the local
understanding
language when you're traveling.
local languages when you're traveling.
And it actually led to me
And then it actually led to me
learning another four languages
learning
fluently
another 4 languages fluently
over the following years.
over the following years.
Now, before I go on, I'd like to know in the audience,
Before I go on, I'd like to in the audience.
we have a little bit of light maybe in the audience.
Can we have a little bit of light, maybe in the audience?
Just like to know
Uh,
who's
Just like to I'd like to know who's
by show of hands
via
who's not a
via show of hands, who's not a
native English speaker.
who's not an English native speaker.
Not a native English speaker.
Via show of hands, who is not an English who is not an English native who is not a native English speaker.
That must be 99%.
Oh, it must be 99%.
Anyone who doesn't speak English, stand up.
And anyone who doesn't speak English, stand up.
All right, so I can assume all of you have,
I can assume all of you have,
gone through the process of learning a language.
gone through the process
Anybody who
of
speaks
learning a languages. Anyone speak?
3 or more languages?
Anyone who speak 3 or more languages?
Wow,
Wow,
that's
there
maybe
was
70%.
maybe 70%.
4 or more languages, anyone?
4 or more languages, anyone?
That's still quite a bit.
Oh,
Anyone
still quite a bit.
speak 5 or more languages?
Anyone 5 or more languages?
Wow, come see me during during the break.
Wow, come see me during the break.
All right. Well, to me, learning a language
To me,
is
learning a language is
for me. It's like
for me
it's
it's
like a deck
like
of playing
a
cards,
deck of playing cards. It's like a deck of playing cards
lying face down on the
lying
table.
face down on the table.
As you start learning and understanding,
As you start learning and understanding,
the cards start
the
opening up for you.
the cards start open up for you.
Now,
자, 이 부분부터 한번 들어볼까요? 자막을 다시 켜고.
lying face down on the table
For me,
it's like a deck of playing cards lying face down on the table.
it's like a deck of playing cards. It's like a deck of playing cards. For me, it's like a deck of playing cards. It's like a deck of playing cards, lying face down on the table, lying face down, lying face down, lying face down on the table. It's like a deck of playing cards, deck of playing cards, deck of playing cards, lying face down on the table.
As you start learning and understanding, the cards start opening up for you.
As you start learning and understanding, the cards start opening up for you. Opening up, opening up, open up. Start opening up, start opening up, start opening up for you. As you start learning and understanding, the cards start opening up for you.
Now,
Now,
there's no
there's no
standard
standard
way of classifying this, but
Now,
as you learn, now there's no
there's
standard
standard
way of classifying this,
now there's a standard way of classifying this,
but as you learn, you reach certain milestones.
but as you learn, you reach certain milestones. But as you learn, you reach certain milestones. But as you learn, but as you learn, but as you learn, but as you learn, you reach. But as you learn, you reach certain milestones. You reach certain milestones.
And the first
And
one
the
would be
first
when
one would
about
be
25% of the cards are turned up.
And the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. When the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up. About 25% of the cards are turned up. When about 25% of the cards are turned up. When about 25% of the cards are turned up. When the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up, 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 cards are turned up, cards are turned up, the cards are turned up, 25% of the cards, 25% of the cards are turned up, 25% of the cards, 25% of the cards are turned up, when about 25% of the cards are turned up, and the first one would be when about 25% of the cards are turned up.
You reach like a basic level.
You turned up, you reach
The
like
first one would be when
basic level.
25% of the cards are turned up. You reach like a basic level.
You reach like a basic level. You reach like a basic level. You reach like a basic level. You reach like a basic level.
At this level,
At this level,
you have
a
a base
base
vocabulary, some grammar,
grammar. At this level,
At this level,
you
you
have a
have
base vocabulary,
some
some
grammar.
grammar. Yeah,
At this level,
you have a
base
base
vocabulary,
vocabulary, some grammar. At this level, you have a base vocabulary, some grammar, base vocabulary, some grammar. At this level, you have a base vocabulary, some grammar, You have a base vocabulary, some grammar. At this level, you have a base vocabulary, some grammar. At this level, you have a base vocabulary, some grammar. At this level, you have a base vocabulary, some grammar, some
grammar, and you're able to
And you're able to
have maybe very simple conversation.
conversations, and you are able to have maybe very simple conversations. You are able to have maybe very simple conversations.
Vocabulary, some grammar, and you're able to have maybe very simple conversation.
Have maybe very simple conversations. You're able to have maybe, and you're able to have maybe very simple conversations. You're able to have maybe very simple conversations. You're able to have maybe very simple conversations, 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 and you're able to have maybe very simple conversations. You're able to have maybe very simple conversations
And communicate a little bit.
and communicate a little bit. Communicate a little bit. At the, and you're able to have maybe very simple conversation and communicate a little bit and communicate a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and communicate a little bit and communicate a little bit and communicate a little bit, communicate a little bit, and your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on, and your study goes on, and your study goes on, and your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on, and your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency, fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency, until you reach you reach this magical point of fluency, this magical point of fluency. You reach this magical point of fluency. And your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency. Your study goes on until you reach this magical point of fluency.
See, what we call being fluent in a language.
Yes. What we call being fluent in the language. What we call being fluent, being fluent, being fluent, being fluent. What we call being fluent in the language. 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 The magical point of fluency. What we call being fluent in the language. This magical point of fluency. What we call being fluent in the language. What we call being fluent, being fluent, being fluent, being fluent. What we call being fluent in the language.
Now, what does this mean? Being fluent in a language.
Yes. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean?
Fluent in a language. Now, what does this mean?
What does this
fluent
mean?
in a language. It means
What does this mean? What does it mean?
what we call being fluent in a language. Now, what does this mean?
What does this mean? What did this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean인데 이수로 잘못 적었네요. What does this mean? Now, what does this mean? Being fluent in a language. What does it mean? Being fluent in a language. In a language. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does this mean? Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language. Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Being fluent in the language. In a language. In a language. In a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language. What does this mean? Being fluent in a language.
Being fluent in a language. It
Language.
means that
It means
you've turned up
you've
more than
turned up more than
50% of the cards in the deck.
It means that you've turned up you've turned up. It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cards in the deck. It means that you've turned up the 50%, more than 50%, more than 50%, more than 50%, more than 50% of the cards in the deck. 50% of the 50% of the cards, 50% of the cards in the deck. It means that you turned up more than 50% of the cards in the deck. Turned up more than 50%, turned up more than 50%, turned up more than 50%, It means that you turned up more than 50%. You turned up more than 50% of the cars in the deck. It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cars in the deck. It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cars, more than 50% of the cars in the deck. It means that you turned up more than 50% of the cars in the deck. It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cars in the deck. It means that you've turned up more than 50% of the cars in the deck. And
that
that is the point
where
where you have, and that is a point where you have, and that is a point, that is a point, that is a point where you have, and that is a point where you have,
where the language becomes
where
part of
the
your
language
subconscious.
where the language becomes part of your subconscious, part of your subconscious, part of your subconscious, where the language becomes part of your subconscious. 찾아볼까요? subconscious. unconscious, 잠재의식, your subconscious, 잠재의식의 일부가 됩니다. Where the language becomes part of your subconscious, where the language becomes part of your subconscious.
Use it anymore for 10 years or longer.
So they, even if you don't use it anymore, for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore, for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you will not forget it. So that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you will not forget it.
Get back into it within a very short time.
You can get back into it.
You will not forget it. You can get back into it.
You can get back into it. You can get back into it within a very short time. Within a very short time. You can get back into it. You can get back into it. Get back into it. You can get back into it. You can get back into it. You can get back into it. Within a very short time. You can get back into it. Back into it. You can get back into it within a very short time. You can get back into it within a very short time. You can get back into it within a very short time. You will not forget it. So that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you will not forget it. You can get back into it within a very short time. 네, 다시 문장 연결해서 so that even if you don't use it anymore for 10 years or longer, you will not forget it. You can get back into it within a very short time. 네, 여기까지 배웠고요. 그다음
So
this is
a level where
you're
you're comfortable thinking in the language.
You're comfortable thinking in a language. So that so
a level where
so this is a level. So this is a level where
you're comfortable
thinking
thinking in the
a
language,
You're comfortable thinking in a language. You're comfortable thinking in a language. You are comfortable thinking. You are comfortable thinking. Comfortable thinking. You are comfortable thinking. You are comfortable thinking in a language. You are 이제 language 그 언어 안에서 편안하게 생각하고 so 이 레벨이라는 것은 당신이 그 레벨의 그 언어로 편안하게 생각한다. 언어로 생각한다. Thinking in a language. 편안하게 생각한다. Comfortable thinking in a language. Comfortable thinking. 당신은 그 언어로 편안하게 생각할 수 있다. You are comfortable thinking in a language. So this is a level where you're comfortable thinking in a language. Thinking in a language
and comfortable communicating in the language.
and comfortable communicating in a language. 편안하게 대소통한다. Comfortable communicating in a language. Communicating in a language. Communicating in a language. Comfortable communicating in a language.
You're comfortable thinking in the language,
You're comfortable. You're comfortable thinking in a language.
and comfortable communicating.
Comfortable
In the language.
communicating in a language. And comfortable communicating in the language. You're comfortable and comfortable communicating in a language.
Some people go
Now, some
on
people
and
go on and
reach like a
reach
mastery
master
level by
level.
that language.
English.
Now,
Some people go on and
reach like a mastery
level. Now, some people go on and reach like a master level. 그래서 어떤 사람들은 계속해서 연습을 해서 마스터 레벨까지 reach합니다. Some people go on and reach like a mastery level. Some people go on and reach like a mastery level. Mastery level. Now some people go on and reach like a mastery level. Now some people go on and reach like a mastery level. Reach like a mastery level. Like a mastery level. Reach like a mastery level. So some people go on and reach. Go on and reach. Some people go on and reach like a mastery level. Some people go on and reach like a mastery level.
By that time,
By that
classic
time,
literature and the
classical literature. By the time. 그때까지. By the time. 그 시간쯤에는 그때쯤에는 이제 이쯤에는 by the time classic literature
the other language.
in the other language. 이제 그 다른 언어로
Reach like a mastery level. By that time, classic literature in the other language.
By the time classic literature in the other language. By the time classic literature in the other language. classic literature in the other language. 다른 언어로 classic literature 이제 알고 classic literature인데 다른 언어의 어떤 그 고전 문학 같은 거를 알고 by the time classic literature in the other language. By the time classic literature in the other language.
Have maybe an in-depth
And
knowledge
have
of
maybe
specialized fields.
Classic
Classic literature in the other language.
language.
Have maybe an in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
And have maybe
That's often the point taken in academia. Have maybe an in-depth knowledge of
specialized fields.
specialized fields.
and have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. And have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. And have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. And have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. And have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. And have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. 그 다음에 그 전문한 분야에 대해서 상당한 깊은 지식을 갖게 됩니다. Have maybe in-depth knowledge, in-depth knowledge, and have maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields.
That's often the point taken in academia.
Yeah, and that's often the field point. That's often
In-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
yeah. That's often the point in academia.
Maybe in-depth knowledge of specialized fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
That's often the point. Often the point. That's often the point. Often. That's often the point. That's often the point. That's often the point. That's often the point taken in academia.
Academia. Fields. That's often the point taken in academia. Fields. That's often the point taken in academia.
Taken in academia. Taken in. That's often the taken in academia. 그래서 이런 학계에서 보여지는 관점입니다. 이런 것들은 보통 학계에서 보여지는 관점입니다. That's often the point taken in academia. That's often the point. That's often the point. That's often the point. That's often the point taken in academia. That's often the point taken in academia. That's often the point taken in academia. That's often the point taken in academia.
Foreign language.
For me, when I learned my first foreign language,
Taken in academia.
taken in academia.
For me, when I learned my first foreign language,
When I learned my first foreign language, for me, when I learned my first foreign language,
I had a head start.
I had a head start. Head start 하면 유리함 이런 거네. 머리가 먼저 시작했다. 한 발짝 앞서 있었습니다. Head start. I had a head start. 저는 한 발짝 앞서 있었습니다. I had a head start. I had a head start. 자, 여기까지 하고 이제 자막 없이 한번 들어보기에는 시간이 잘 됐네요. 네, 그럼 오늘 여기까지 하겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다.